Ken Cuccinelli now, former DHS acting deputy secretary. Ken, as people storm our border, we had 73,000 in the last 10 days. You wonder how many amongst them are criminals. This guy was an example of what everybody fears, the killer next door.
Yeah, absolutely, Brian. And look, this was a preventable crime, a preventable killing. And the way to prevent it is to seal our border. This is not inevitable. And a lot of people on the other side talk about, well, the crime rate among illegals, this or that. It isn't the rate. It's that this crime never had to happen. And Joe Biden's open borders policy only makes it more likely. We're going to be seeing more and more of this in the years to come from the 6+ million invaders that he has invited effectively into this country. And as amazing as it is, and you guys have done a great job reporting on the open borders policy, and yet it's about to become even more open with the takedown of the Title 42 policies. A lot of people who want to see a secure border don't realize just what a high proportion of illegal border crossers are actually returned to Mexico by the Biden administration under Title 42. For most of the administration, it was over half of them. Well, it's gradually dropped below half, but if you just take that number with no change in the flow, that would mean double the number staying in the United States on a daily basis. And of course, you all have been reporting on the flow is not staying the same. Right. A good chunk of the hemisphere is lining up at the border. It's like an Oklahoma land grab where they're going to shoot the gun off here on May 11th, and they're going to dash into the country. 1,500 troops is inadequate, but let's not kid ourselves. Greg Abbott's efforts have been inadequate, too. Greg Abbott has the power under the Constitution to stop this invasion between the ports of entry, and he has declined to do so.
He has indeed. Ken, you know, as we look at all those images, we hear from this administration the border is secure. Well, if it's secure, how do people like this alleged murderer of 5 people, how do they get back into the United States 4 times? He was deported 4 times, and he just kept coming back.
He did, and there is a bipartisan definition of what a secure border is. Chuck Schumer voted for it. Joe Biden voted for it, and it's exactly as you say. If we had a secure border under the bipartisan definition of what a secure border is, this wouldn't be happening. Mm-hmm. We do not have a secure border. If Joe Biden went from 1,500 troops to maybe 50,000 and actually let them turn people back in between the ports of entry, maybe you'd get a secure border at that point. But he has no interest in a secure border. We aren't going to see a secure border completely until there's a Republican in the White House who actually cares about this issue again. And even my comments about Greg Abbott, even with the best effort of Greg Abbott in Texas, that's still only 60% of the border, although it is more than that in the terms of illegal crossings.
Yeah, and Ken, what about the resources? I mean, just to catch this one illegal guy, you said that this could have been prevented. This is a guy who comes across who's not supposed to be there. If they had stopped him, even the first time, the second time, the third time, the fourth time, 5 people would be alive today. And think about all the resources: 250 police officers and other officers in other divisions going door to door. How much did that cost the state? Now we have to house this guy in our prisons. How much is that costing the taxpayers? All of that could have been prevented.
All of it, absolutely right, Ainsley. All of that could have been prevented. And look, you know, what about moms there? Were they letting their kids go to school? I mean, this was a shooter on the loose. This was disrupting the entire community for these 5 days, to say nothing of the tragedy itself. But you're absolutely right. The level of disruption from this one illegal alien is really incredible. And this administration just doesn't care. They just don't care. And that's hard for people to understand. They are willing to accept this carnage to have this invasive open border because they view it as in their political interest long term.
But don't they know that their Democratic mayors going down in flames because of it? They can't afford it. They can't get the president's attention. They can't get federal dollars to pay for it. It's going to cost New York City $4.3 billion by the middle of next year that they don't have. They're already overdrawn or over budgeted by $100 million. So this makes no sense.
Brian,
who benefits?
Well, again, the radical left that has the wheel in the Biden administration wants an open borders policy. And it's crazy. And it isn't just the border mayors. I mean, Adams in New York City, Lori Lightfoot, of all people, in Chicago, is crying uncle for 8,000 illegals. That's not even a day in some of the crossing areas that Texas is facing. It's extraordinary. It's destructive, and every town is a border town, and more Democrats are going to be losing because of this issue.
If there's any justice, it has to be your number one goal is to keep America secure. How can you do that letting 6 million people in? And I still would like to know where those tens of thousands of Chinese, why they suddenly want to come here. Are they escaping the regime, or do they have other motives?
All right, Ken, thank you very much for joining us live.
Good to be with you.
All right.